On this episode of Death by Bunjie, we're taking a look at Bunjie 3.0, the Scorpyd Deathstalker 420. I was pretty excited when I got this thing in the mail.
I didn't record any of that. Can you believe that?
Don't ever give me a hard time ever again. At least I recorded.
So Genevieve just pulled it out of the box. This is the contents of the box, the Scorpyd crossbow. I gotta tell you, that box weighed like nothing, and this crossbow is like the lightest one I have ever picked up. I cannot believe it. Despite that, this is my initial reaction right out of the box. This crossbow does not feel rinky-dink. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't feel chintzy. It feels durable, solid, and well built. It is nice and dense, but not like dense in the feel of the Ravens that we shot that are, you know, feel pretty heavy in your hand and all that. This thing feels extremely light compared to any other crossbow I've ever held. That's a fact. Now, it doesn't have a scope on here. That glass is going to start weighing more and all that good stuff. But holy cow. And I got to tell you, it sticks out in front of you a lot, right? But the weight is right here on my hand. It's a little bit front heavy, but you've also got the grip out front. Look how far out my hand is. Look at the separation between my trigger finger and my forearm, right? The foregrip. My hand's clear out here in the front. That's pretty sweet. This feels really good. It feels really real. I mean, honestly, I've never seen a Scorpyd in person. Only seen them on the YouTube there. And this feels fantastic. Look at the finish on this. This is unfinished carbon. That's carbon. That is what the natural carbon looks like. I'm really impressed holding on to this. It feels a lot better than what I expected it to be. I mean, I can walk around with this thing like this, and this is, I mean, it's really light. I didn't take upgrading the crossbow lightly. I wanted to make sure that whatever crossbow I upgraded to kept some of the features that I liked of the original Bunjie, right here, the original Bunjie, the OB. I wanted to make sure that some of those features still existed. The features that I liked were still available to me in my newer crossbow. You'll see right off the bat here, one thing that looks a little out of place on this Scorpyd crossbow is the scope. This is the Excalibur Twilight DLX. It was taken from the original Bunjie. I took that off of here and put it on here. It was an upgraded scope for that crossbow. It's an Excalibur scope, but it's a familiar scope to me. Looking through it, it's the same reticles that I've shot lots of deer with, used it time and time again, sighted in the backyard, gotten very comfortable with, very familiar with. Very important to me to keep that familiarity going from one platform to another. It really helped me make the transition to make sure that while shooting this crossbow, I feel really comfortable doing it. The reticles on this scope only go out to 60 yards, so we're not looking at any 100-yard shots or anything like that. With the 150 grain broadhead, 370 grain stock Deathstalker arrows, we're right up at the .7s with this thing in terms of momentum. It's right where I want to be. I do like this quiver. This is a snap-off quiver. You can kind of get hurt with this thing if you're not careful. But looking at that quiver, I do like it. It is a very functional quiver. And the nice thing about this is when I take it off, I can snap it onto my backpack, carry it in and out of the woods, snap it on the tree stand, that sort of thing. And taking it off, you lose a little bit of weight, but it's still portable. I can snap it right back on there if you get it lined up. It goes right back on there and holds tight. Really good grip, too. That thing's not coming off of there. That's the Lil Grip 3+2 quiver, I guess is what it's called. I do like it. Holds 5 arrows. How about that? When I originally bought it, I was thinking, I don't know if I want that as my accessory because 3 arrows, I don't know if that's enough, but I can put an extra couple in there. One of them which is the decocking arrow. You can see that on there. The decocking arrow, that big thumper that we got on there. That is one feature of this crossbow. It does require that it be shot in order to be decocked. You can't just decock it or uncock it the way you do the Excaliburs. That's okay. For me, that wasn't great. I was a little nervous about that, but I haven't had any problems. 90% of the time, I'm shooting in the backyard.
Bullseye.
So I'm shooting the crossbow anyway, so it's irrelevant. What do you think of that, huh? Quick tour of this crossbow. Now, it is a reverse limb, reverse draw crossbow. Reverse limb because the riser's clear back here under your hand. Reverse draw as well. We're drawing it back from the far side of the camp. So when we pull back, the string is coming from the very end of the crossbow. That increases our draw length, but you'll notice this really isn't a bullpup design, okay? The safety is right here, okay? instead of back here by my ear. So we don't have that sort of safety issue. The placement of this safety, let's talk about that. I really like it. Little round safety right here, knurled edges on this little knob, makes it real easy to find that safety, slide it forward. It is a quiet safety. You ready? Ready for the safety? You gonna hear it? Ready? Didn't even hear it. That's pretty cool. I do like the quiet safety. You'll notice that this crossbow is entirely black with red adornments, right? Red lettering and all that good stuff. And for that reason, I put on a string. Genevieve and I actually changed this string ourselves and put on a custom string from America's Best Bowstrings, an upgraded string. I did that because it's red and black. It matches the lettering on the crossbow. It's also a Death by Bunjie color. It looks really, really good on here, I think. It matches the fire nocks that we're going to install on the Deathstalker arrows. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world to change that string, but it was doable. I'm pretty impressed with myself. People kept saying, well, if you switch to a compound crossbow, you're going to have all these different issues. Switching strings, you can't change it in the field and all that. I don't know if I could do this myself in the field, but I definitely could change this crossbow string in the field, especially if Genevieve's there to help me out with it. As long as she's around, I can get just about anything done. But the black finish is a matte black finish. I really like it. It's kind of a smooth, weathered look, but it also reduces the wear on the string. It has a special coating on it. The material itself is smoother, and for that reason, it reduces string wear. We actually don't lube this rail the way that you do the Excalibur. It's kind of neat. My friend Scott had commented that you actually have to pay extra for black now. Can you believe that? I think it was like an upgrade of $50 to get black instead of camo. Back in the day, you paid extra for camo. What's up with that? This crossbow has the upgraded string dampeners on here, spring-loaded string dampeners. They make a little bit of noise. I'm doing a video this week about how we pack some silicone grease in there and some rubber washers, some fittings in there to make that a little quieter. Should reduce the overall sound of it. This crossbow is really, really quiet. You guys have commented time and time again on the live streams and different videos where I've shot it, how quiet this crossbow is. Kind of in a different class, at least from what I'm used to. The Excaliburs, the original Bunjie, very loud. Genevieve's crossbow, pretty loud, despite the fact that that's the suppressor with a lot of rubber grommets installed, all that fun stuff. It does reduce the vibration somewhat, and this has some of the rubber on here as well. But the key to quieting this crossbow really is its design, in my opinion. If you look at these guys right here, I've got the little rubber fingers installed. These came with it, so I put them on there. It does reduce speed a little bit because you're adding weight to the limbs. That rubber weighs a little bit. But I will say this, when we stuck these on here, I just used a regular adhesive. I didn't have to glue them on with goat tough glue like I did on Bunjie Jr., for example. Using a regular adhesive, peeled the backing off, stuck them on here. They've stayed in place 100%. I think that's a testament to the reduced vibration, the reduced limb movement here. There isn't as much going on with this crossbow. There's not as much energy. It is a 150-pound draw weight crossbow. Can you believe that? Less than the original Bunjie. Wow, it's less than that. That thing's a 2010 Excalibur Axiom going on 12 years. That's a 175-pound draw weight. This is a mere 150 and shoots about 100 feet per second faster. Now, I did add another piece of rubber right here on the end on the stirrup. The stirrup is a metal stirrup, and when you'll stand it up against the wall in the basement on the concrete floor, it was sliding around. By adding this little piece of rubber on here, it's a limb saver, I believe. Yeah, limb saver. It says a limb saver right on it there. But by adding that extra piece of rubber on there, we do get the ability for it to grip on those hard surfaces a little bit better. It'll help it stand up against a tree, even if you're setting it on a rock, something like that. So it makes that difference, but I think it might add to the quieting of the crossbow as well. I'm running a 150 grainer through there, 150 grain field point. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to see the difference in sound. How's that sound? Ready? So we'll set her up here. We'll ease it forward and see if we can sneak it through there. 1911 pistol grips, right? You can change them out. I actually put these together, bought them for like 10 or 11 bucks off eBay. Put a nice mahogany finish on there, mahogany stain, a little bit of satin, polyurethane on top of it to give it a nice smooth finished look. They look pretty slick on here, I think. I think that's a pretty good looking grip right there, I think, if you ask me. It's got that woodsy look to it. I also really like this trigger. I never gave much thought to triggers. I used the same crossbow for 11 seasons in the woods. With the original Bunjie, the trigger is what it is. It was what it was, and it worked fine. I shot some other crossbows when we were preparing to upgrade to a newer, faster crossbow. And some of them I actually didn't like the triggers. This one I really liked. I mean, in comparison to the other ones, it feels very similar to the trigger on the original Bunjie, but I don't flinch. I don't have any issues with that. Didn't have to get used to it or anything like that. Worked out pretty good for me. Another thing I did is I actually left this thing cocked for 3 hours, right? With the original string on, not with this upgraded string, but nonetheless, I left it cocked for 3 hours, and it was still shooting accurately after sitting. That's like a real life test for what it would be like in the woods. We're seeing if it will maintain accuracy after sitting in the shade, just like in a tree stand, for a little over 3 hours. So we've been sitting in the tree stand and our big buck is walking in. We need to know if it's still going to be accurate. This is a test that I wish we could do. You really can't do this test, right, without having the crossbows in your possession. So I'm very fortunate to have had this opportunity to shoot this crossbow like this. It's really not meant for this tall bench that I have here, but we're going to see how it works, okay? So we've got this ready to go. We're going to ease the safety forward. You ready? You didn't even hear that, did you? Ready? We're going to shoot center dot at 20. We're going to go right where it went last time. But there are a few things about this crossbow that I don't like, really, for the most part. They're little things, This rubber on the back here, I understand that's a comfort thing. It also probably helps to quiet the crossbow, make the shooting experience a little smoother. But it's a limb saver cushion on the back here. I wish I could actually just take that off and have a smooth, hard plastic one there, because it does catch on all of my clothes. It's constantly catching. So I have to get into the comfort, I have to get comfortable with that way of lifting it up and pulling it back kind of thing. You know, it's just one of those things that it gets caught like on my sleeves and stuff like that. It's a little grippier than what I like. It's comfortable, but if there's a way to take that off, let me know. I'm just throwing that out there. So that's not necessarily my favorite thing. Another thing I didn't like about it, while we're on that topic, is the cocking mechanism. This is a sled cock crossbow. You need a sled cocker to cock this. And it took me a little getting used to that. There's a short version and a long version. The short version does not have pulleys, and I still, to date, have not cocked this crossbow with that short cocker. I had it for a week, was unable to do it, and I waited during that week to get the long rope cocker delivered. The one with the pulleys, able to do it. Honestly, like, this is the dumbest. Well, you're gonna videotape me doing this?
Yeah.
I don't even know what I'm doing. Of what value is this? Given that I don't even know what I'm doing to these.
It really is a angle thing more than anything. And once I switched feet, I had to actually switch to my left foot from my right foot. That made a difference for me. I think it's going to be different for everybody. But using the cocking mechanism on this, I'm getting used to it. Obviously, I'm satisfied with it, or I wouldn't be continuing to use this crossbow. But it's not as efficient as the original Bunjie. There's trade-offs. Everything we do in this business is trade-offs. And trading up to a faster crossbow requires different cocking mechanisms. That's just how it works. If you want to stay with the original Bunjie, you have the familiar, older cocking style. It's just trade-offs. This is a little bit awkward also. The stock here where it comes back, as you can see, it's a little bit wider than most of them. Normally you'd have a narrower sort of stock on these things. Not a big deal, but when I snap my head on, I still don't have 100% comfort level here. It's with the original Bunjie, I'd lift that up and I was immediately had perfect eye relief, immediately set right where I wanted to be. This is a little bit different, and it takes just a little bit getting used to it. I'm not sure if it's just this or maybe it's the height of the scope. I'm still playing around with it. Maybe I got to move the scope forward or back. I just have to play around with it and get it just right. But I want to be able to snap right in there and put my eyes in it. And when I do this, it just doesn't feel exactly right where I want it to be. So I think what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to take a Dremel tool and carve this out with a Dremel tool and narrow it up and remove some of that extra stock that's on here. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to carve this up. Don't worry. I'm not going to do that, but we're going to continue to play around with it. It's just not a traditional feel, and it doesn't snap right on here perfect, but we'll figure it out. Another thing I'm not real keen on, the balance is great in your hand when you're shooting it, which is important, but when I lean it up against me in a tree stand, it's a little narrower, so it wants to tip a little bit this way and roll a little bit. It doesn't sit flat against you the way the original Bunjie did with those giant limbs sticking out there. The advantage of that was greater weight holding it in place. The narrower crossbows just tend to roll a little bit. However, this one, 22.5 inches, I think, from outside diameter, okay, the outside width. That's pretty good, especially when you're shooting, because I feel comfortable holding it up when I'm looking through the scope. I have in my peripheral vision a little bit of the limbs still in my vision. So I can tell naturally, without having to think about it, whether I'm canting or not. Very important. And just to talk about accuracy, what is a more important topic to wrap up a video about a new crossbow than the topic of accuracy? This thing is accurate. It has been consistently accurate for me. Once dialed in, it's shooting really good at 50, 60 yards, which is the farthest out I go in the farthest out the scope goes, but the farthest out I go in this yard. I killed a woodchuck at 50 yards, and that arrow, that Deathstalker arrow with a 150 grain broadhead, went exactly where I wanted it to go. And you can't ask for more than that out of a crossbow. That's perfection, right? That is crossbow perfection. So I was very happy with that. Accuracy is number one with crossbows. Welcome, Bunjie III, to the Death by Bunjie crossbow family. And all hail Bunjie.